Well, hello and welcome to Season 2 and Episode 16 of In the Growth Space. It's David, and I really appreciate you joining me here today. You know, I always say that our goal here with the podcast is really to help you, our listeners, to move forward on your growth path and really grow in whatever area of life you're focused on by sharing conversations with great people who've been on a journey themselves, a growth journey of themselves. And sometimes we talk with business leaders, sometimes we talk with coaches, sometimes we talk with emerging leaders. And you're going to hear a great story of growth today. But before we get started, I want to just take a little bit of time here just to say that if you're a leader and you want to lead well in 2023, I want to encourage you to join me at the Inner Circle Summit. It's on December the 13th, and this is the one time every year that we invite the public to join myself and our Inner Circle members really to celebrate the year and to get ready for the next one. And I know that this is going to be a fantastic day. We have some amazing facilitators that are coming. It is a workshop, so if you don't want to work, if you're just used to sitting back, taking notes, and never doing anything with it, this is not for you. So be ready to engage, be ready to maybe even get outside of your comfort zone. But as of this recording, and if you're listening to this before December 12th, you still have time to register. So go to www.davidmcglennon.com/Inner Circle Summit 2022. And again, we'll put that link in the show notes. But that will get your seat. You'll get a chance to get registered. And we have had some teams register already with leaders from the UK and also from the North America. One of our facilitators is coming from Canada. And it's going to be a great growth environment and a great opportunity to network with some other amazing leaders as well. Today, our guest is Eric Konovalov. And Eric is a former communist, a refugee, whose family fled the Soviet Union in the early 90s. And although they left physically, Eric grew up seeing how his parents' communist mindset and their belief systems were behind all their decision making, which really led to struggle and a lack of freedom to do what they dreamt of doing. And Eric wanted something better for his life, and he set out to achieve it. So after spending 8 challenging years with the United States Marines, Eric excelled in the field of sales and sales leadership. Now, this is a story that you're going to want to really just sit back and listen into and maybe even take some notes. There are some great takeaways from this conversation. You really are going to love Eric. So let's get into that episode now. Hey, Eric, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to In the Growth Space, man. I'm grateful to have you here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, David. What an honor.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this and looking forward to having this conversation. I know ever since you and I met in person, down in Florida, gosh, I think it's maybe been 6 months ago. I think it was back in January. I knew I wanted to have you on this podcast, and so it's really cool to have you here. Let's start by telling everybody a little bit about your story. I mean, it's kind of cool because your family did not grow up here. I mean, you weren't born here. You grew up here, but your family didn't. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, we moved here. I was 10 years old when we came here, so it was,
yeah.
Went to 4th grade, and I'm a former communist.
Oh man!
As
transformed into the capitalist, right?
Yeah, and listen, so I was born in the former Soviet Union in 1980, and they technically ask you if you want to join the Communist Party.
Oh wow!
And if you say no, you're going to end up in Siberia. So pretty much everybody joins the Communist Party. So in school, you go to 1st grade and you get a little pin, and, they make sure that they indoctrinate you at a very young age.
Yeah.
And so a civil war kind of started to break out where I was between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And I think my family saw the chance. I think Ronald Reagan was allowing people to, come into the United States. And I don't know exactly what was happening back then, but we got out as refugees and ended up in Baltimore, Maryland back in 1990. So
wow.
I won a lottery ticket with that, but there was 6 of us. It was me, my mom, my sister, stepdad, and 2 stepsisters. And we came here with $400 to our name. Wow. The guards at the airport, when we were leaving, ransacked everything and took whatever they wanted. Really? And I remember it was like, either you leave with this stuff. Either you stay with this stuff or you leave without it. Which one do you want?
Yeah. And so
so my parents got out of there. It was, as a kid, you kind of don't realize how much of an impact and how stressful that is, leaving a country with 4 kids. That's crazy. Not speaking a language, not having a profession, not having any money. Yeah. And we came here, took full advantage of every social service there was for refugees. 6 people in 2-bedroom apartment. David, I remember we had this our room had 4 twin beds. Literally from the wall to the door, like the door didn't close. It was just 4 beds. Yeah. And when you walked into the room, you hit a bed. And so I had 2, my sister and one stepsister's older and one younger. I would hop over all of them because I had the window bed. I was an early riser. So I would hop over them and hop out and run into the living room. And it was the best life ever. It's like, you don't realize what you don't know, but interesting humble beginnings when we first got here.
What a story, man. And when you came, obviously you didn't speak English, right? I mean,
no.
So you had to learn English at the age of 10.
Yeah, at the age of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, and lucky for us, we're in America because they had ESOL, which is English as a second language in school. Right, teachers were great. There were so many programs that help you kind of get up. But I learned mainly, my mentor in English was Bugs Bunny.
Love it.
I remember I was greeting people saying, "What's up, Doc?"
What's up, Doc? That's all, folks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Oh man. Well, how did that then inform, kind of that's a formative place to make such a drastic change. 10 years old. I mean, I can remember back when I was 10 years old, and any kind of a change at that point in your life is a big one. So how did that, kind of shape you and mold you as a teenager?
I don't know if that necessarily shaped me or molded me, but what it did do, immigrant parents had to find a way to provide. So my oldest stepsister, I remember she was 15 or 16 when we got here. She got a job at McDonald's. My stepfather went to work at some factory and had a heart attack. And he couldn't do that job anymore. My mom ended up working at a gas station and some nail salon, like literally they would leave, 6:30, 7 a.m. I wouldn't see my mom till 11 p.m. sometimes. She would go to work, go to the hospital, come home. So, unfortunately, when there's no supervision, you kind of run the streets, get into, stupid things as a teenager.
Sure.
That led to me being expelled from school 3 different times, been in alternative schools. Had a home teacher 1 year. That was horrendous. Court systems. I mean, it was not going in the right direction for me as a teenager. And then it's funny. My mom was just here. So we moved to Florida almost a year and a half ago. And my mom was visiting just last weekend. And she was talking to my wife, Julia. And she's like, the kids must take it after Eric in school because he used to get such good grades. And Julia, she's like, why did your mom think you were getting good grades? And I remember my buddies and I took full advantage of the fact that I had an ignorant mom, ignorant to the system. She didn't go to school here. She didn't understand. So we would literally, if I got a report card, back then there was no emails, there were no letters sent home. I would get, and when the school did send a letter home, my mom didn't get it. We knew her signature. We would sign, it was terrible. But
Oh my goodness.
I remember we would go to Kinko's with our report cards and literally take a report card and make like 7 copies of it. If one of our friends had an A or a B, we made a bunch of those and just cut out that A or B, glued it onto the E's and F's,
Oh my
and
gosh.
made a copy. And that's what I would bring home. And I didn't realize, I'm 41 years old now. I never realized that my mom still didn't know that all those report cards were forged.
Shatter her world now, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
No,
god.
I'm sure she'd laugh at it. I just let it go, but
Yeah.
I'm sure she would laugh at it if she knew now. Anyway, so I decided after high school I would just join the Marine Corps. I wanted to enlist. There was a reason I picked the Marines. It was a shallow reason, but I was 17 years old. Nobody in my family has ever served. And I went into the recruiter's office, and it was like I was going for Army or Navy. Air Force, didn't even come into my mind. Yeah. And I didn't even know Marine Corps existed. Knew nothing about it.
Okay.
So the way the recruiting office was set up, you walk into this kind of office building, and inside every branch had an office for a recruiter. So I went into the Army recruiter's office, and that guy looked like Elmer Fudd, like short.
No. Back to Bugs Bunny again.
Yeah. I do a lot of cartoon references.
I love it.
This guy was short, chubby. He had a mustache, glasses, like his shirt was half untucked. Like, oh, man. I was 17 years old, and I looked at him. I'm like, that is not what I want. Like, this is how I'm judging where I'm going to, spend my military career. Navy guy wasn't there. He was out to lunch. The Air Force guy was his twin brother. And I'm leaving out the door kind of deflated a little bit. So I'm walking out, and I hear out of the corner office somewhere, like literally didn't even see that office, said, "What are you, too chicken shit to come in here?"
Oh no.
Like, 17 years old. I'm a tough guy. Right. I walk in, and here's another cartoon reference for you. There you have Johnny Bravo sitting there, right? He's in his uniform. His muscles are popping out of his shirt. He's got this beautiful hair. There's like, I had a man crush right away. Yeah, exactly. And behind him, he's got pictures of him and his buddies, no shirts on a beach, like on a tank. It was the craziest thing, right? But for a 17-year-old, I'm like, that's what I want to do.
That's me, yeah.
So that was Saturday morning. That Monday, he came to my school in his uniform. Oh, man. Every girl I had a crush on didn't stop talking about this guy for like 2 weeks straight. That's how I made the decision to go into the Marines.
It wasn't valor. It was.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know Marines were considered, out of the services, very prestigious and few and proud. I didn't know. I just liked the blues and it was cool. And this was 1997, maybe 1998. So the only thing was going on was maybe Kosovo. We weren't really involved in any combat back then. Sure. And I had my mom sign for me. So he came over to our house. She signed when I was 17. And as soon as I graduated high school, I went to Paris Island.
Yeah. It's so funny because, it sounds, well, not exactly, but it's really similar to my son, because he was 17. And I knew, there was something in me. I had to sign for him at 17. And there's something in me that was like, I don't want to do this. But yet I know that if I don't do this, he's going to do it as soon as he turns 18 and he's out, And so I'm like, look, I'm just delaying the inevitable, but, and he, he just, I'm not exactly sure. To this day, I don't even know. Well, yes, I do. I know why he joined. It's interesting because in everybody's journey, it's always interesting to hear kind of the why behind they join.
I wish I had a better why.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, and it's interesting. So, that had to be a growing experience for you is going from, kind of that street smart kid to, the Marine Corps and, the discipline and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of curious, what was the biggest transition or the takeaway? Boot camp is tough. It's Marine Corps. You went to the toughest boot camp.
Well, I think, I did have street smarts. I'll tell you that, not to brag about myself, but I quickly realized that everything the drill instructors did, it was just a game to keep you under pressure. So I would see guys get super frustrated because no matter how well you made your rack, which is your bed, they could come up and they will find something, no matter how great you took all the little strings off your uniform or polished your boots. We used to polish the boots before they went to like the Timberland style that you didn't polish.
Yeah.
They'd find a mistake. No matter how fast you ran, it wasn't fast enough. And the reason for that was to keep you under stress. Yeah. How do you perform under stress? Because you get out in combat, you know, you can get stressed out about your bed not being made or somebody yelling at you, and you won't get hurt. But you know, we don't perform well under stress. It's hard to, you know, what happens under stress? Blood flow goes away from your, you know, the thinking part of your brain goes into your extremities so you can fight or flight, right?
Yeah, right.
And so those people who can elevate their performance at a stress level and stay calm are the ones that are going to perform the best. And what Marines did, I think, is help me realize that stuff isn't that important most of the time that we stress over.
Right.
I'm still going to be alive. Nobody's shooting at me. Like I get to come home to my family. Like life is good.
Life is good. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Wow. That's Well, I mean, that's an amazing transition or transformation in and of itself, because I mean, as a kid, I mean, learning how to perform under pressure, I can imagine that, you know, just taking that lesson alone going into the, you know, the business world, because I know you were in the Marine Corps for what, 8 years? I think you were in there for 8 years. And then, you know, then you transitioned out, and, you know, I mean, and anything compared to that has got to be, you know, kind of easy in some regards, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, as a kid performing under pressure, I think all of us have a different boiling point, right? Sure. And for some, it's very, very low. And I think we got to help raise that up, because they're not going to be able to survive in a stressful environment. For when I was getting out of the Marine Corps, I got into sales. I was selling copiers in Baltimore. Never been in sales my whole life. Okay. The guy that hired me did a training with me like for 4 days inside of a little office. And then on day 4, he's like, all right, go cold call. And I remember I looked at him. I'm like, what do you mean cold call? Like, what does
that mean? Oh man.
He's like, well, you go out and, you know, you knock on doors and you see who needs copiers and tell them that you can help them save some money and show them you got a good product, blah, blah, blah. At this point, I'm 26 or 27 years old. It was right before my 27th birthday. And I don't use copiers. Like, I don't, you know, since high school, I joined the Marines. I don't know exactly who needs copiers at this point.
Yeah, sure.
But I remember, I didn't want to feel stupid. I just went through like a 4-day training about what a copier is and what it does, but not how people use it or why they need one in their office, right?
Love it.
So I had zero business sense at that point. So I remember driving and I'm like, who uses copiers? Like, why would anybody need a copier? And then I see like a Minuteman press. And I'm like, these guys use it. Says copies in the window. They got to use copiers. So I walk in there. Here I am, this new kid selling copy machines. I don't know a first thing about a copy machine. And I'm talking to a guy who's been in the business probably 30 years. And he knows, he fixes his own copy machines.
Right. Oh, God.
And the brand I was selling is not good for heavy volume printing. It's good for a little office. So I come into him, and now, you know, I've conditioned over the last 3 days that this is the best copier. This is the best brand. We were selling Sharp. This is the best. So I walk in, and I'm like, you're using Xerox. Why? I got the best product here. And he starts asking me these questions. I realized I have no idea what he's talking about. You didn't know what
you're talking about. Oh, man.
That was pretty embarrassing. I got my ass handed to me there.
I love it.
What
drew you to sales in the first place? What drew you to sales? I mean, like, how did you even? Question. Yeah, I mean, how did you even think about that?
I didn't. So I was getting out of the Marines. I was very close with my commanding officer. I was like the operations chief, and we were a very small unit in North Carolina. And one day I went to him. I'm like, sir, by the way, I would have stayed till retirement. Like I thought I'd retire after 20 years and have a pension and everything would be fine. My girlfriend at the time, wife now of, 15 plus years, told me back then, she's like, listen, this isn't what I signed up for. I love you, but I can't handle you being gone all the time. And that's not the life I want.
Yeah.
So we were just dating, and I got out, and it took me a few weeks to really think through it and make a decision. That's probably the first thing I've actually thought into and made a logical and emotional decision at the same time. And so I still believe I made the right decision. But anyway, so it's not that I really wanted to get out. I went to my commanding officer. I said, hey, sir, his name was Flip. We called him Joker. I'm like, I've been here since high school. What the hell do I do when I get out? Yeah. And he's like, with all the bullshit you've sold me through the years, you should get into sales. Like, okay. Like, I don't know what sales is, but I'll do it. And a part of what I did in the Marine Corps, we did Toys for Tots.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was selling, right? Going into businesses, asking for donations, asking to put a box in there, asking to dress up as Santa and greet their people and have, make some deals that, like, if you bring 2 toys in to Golden Corral, then you get to eat for free. All these things. We would go out and negotiate and meet people and cold call, essentially.
Yeah.
It's easy to do when you're doing it for children. As a Marine, right? I don't have anything to gain or lose. I don't make $1 out of these toys. Like, it didn't matter. So I just enjoyed it, and turned out I was pretty good at it. We serviced 26 counties in North Carolina, some of the poorest places I've ever seen in the United States. Like, you can't even imagine how poor people live in some of the mountains in North Carolina. And we'd show up with busfuls and 5-ton truck full of toys to churches. It was just really gratifying experience.
That's cool.
So that's what he said. He's like, hey, with all the bullshit you sold me through the years, get into sales. So I filled out a resume, put it up on monster.com, and every freaking Aflac agent called me.
Oh man. Yes, of course.
And I could not back then imagine commission only. It just wasn't even in my awareness that somebody could work without a guaranteed pay. And, and that scared me, because coming from the military, whether you work, don't work, you're sick, not sick, on the 1st and the 15th, you're getting a paycheck. Your healthcare is covered. Your food is covered. Your lodging is covered. You got nothing to worry about if you can, like, not spend everything they give you, right? That's all you got. It's dummy proof, really. And I think the military, I'd hate to blame the military. I just think I didn't show up for the classes that they invited me to for financial literacy and all that. But they keep you dependent, right? I mean, you really get comfortable in the military. And when you come out and that paycheck's not guaranteed on the 1st or 15th, it's a scary thought. So I passed up on Aflac. Not sure if that was the right thing to do. But back then, not including all the benefits, I was probably taking home 25 grand a year as a sergeant or a staff, just newly promoted staff sergeant. And so when these guys offered me 40 grand to come and sell copiers plus commission,
you're like,
I remember 4 or 5 months into it, I got a commission check that was like $7,500. I've never seen that in one paycheck. Yeah. So this is incredible. I never want to make any less money than this.
Yeah, right.
Just, that kind of opened up my eyes.
Oh man, that's amazing. Well, and that transition then from that routine paycheck to starting your own business, that had to be another kind of a jump, because you have your own business today. To talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it came very easy to me, David, and I'll tell you why. I'm just blessed and lucky. It's almost, it's kind of like I cheated, which I did. So I went to, after that organization, I got into medical device sales for a company called Stryker. I was actually in the OR, seeing people get nails and screws put into their bodies and guiding doctors on how to do that. I hated every second of it. And then Xerox called me up and they're like, hey, we know you're not in the industry anymore. We know who you are. Can you come in for an interview? So I went and interviewed with them. They offered me a job, and I took it. Within 2 months, I was a manager at Xerox. I came in as a sales rep, but like within 2 months, I got promoted to managing.
Wow.
And I sucked. Like, I really sucked as a manager, but somehow we stumbled our way. I took over a team of like 2. We got to a team of about 10. grew it, like everything was going well. And then I got recruited by another company to be their director of sales.
Okay.
So I get there, it's a smaller company, and everyone who's there has been there for like 16 years. And I say, hey, why don't we do this? And they go to the president's office because they're all church buddies. They go, they go to the president's office and they're like, why did we need this guy here? We're doing fine without him. We don't need him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was some stressful stuff. Nobody wanted to take me on appointments. No, like they avoided me like the plague. They didn't want to tell me what was going on. It was the worst. And that's how I got involved with John Maxwell. I remember saying, it can't be all of them. It's got to be me. What am I doing wrong here? I'm not connecting. And coming from military, coming from Xerox, which is very regimented. Like Xerox has zero problems with firing their salespeople. You don't perform, you're out. So it's almost, you're leading by fear in that environment. If you want to keep your job, perform. If you don't want to, if you're not performing, you're out. Here, it was more like family oriented. They had a guy that probably didn't sell anything for like 7 months, and he's still there. And I'm wondering, why in the hell is he here?
Yeah, right.
And they're just buddy. Oh, well, he's a really nice guy. He has a family. We really like him. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. I'm fine. Yeah. It's not my money, but anyway, so I decided I'm an early riser. I go to the gym pretty early. So my treadmill became a classroom. I would put on leadership videos, and I started hearing John Maxwell kept popping up. Well, somebody must have told him, because there was this John Maxwell team. They started bombarding me with ads and calling me. And I signed up to go become a better leader for this company. Little did I know, they help you. A guy by the name of Paul Martinelli, who was genius enough to start the John Maxwell team, made it a business in a box. Like, how do you start your own leadership training, coaching company? And Paul did such an amazing job with that organization that it was almost stupid if you didn't do it. And so I wanted to put it to the test through something that was called mastermind groups. So Paul's whole business strategy was, hey, reach out to some business owners, tell them you're going to come in, do a lunch and learn or train their team for free just to show them what you got. And after that, they'll pay you. So what I did while I was still working at this company, I just cold called 10 people, 10 business owners. And I asked one of them if we can use his conference room. He said yes. And we met for 10 weeks on a Wednesday night from like 7 till 9 p.m. And we did that on the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. So I facilitated it. And what the result was is everybody's kind of organization grew. They all improved in one way or another. And after the 10 weeks, 4 of them said, how do I get you to come to my company and do this? And what do you charge? And that's how the company was born. Well, 6 months later, I go to my president at my company. And at this time, I think we grew it from like 4 million to 12 million a year. I let go of the guy that wasn't selling. We brought in 2 more people. Everybody else was the same. And we just exploded. And I went to him, I said, listen, I love you. I love the organization, but I found a new passion. I want to go do this thing where I'm coaching, training. And I'll give you 6 months if you want. I'll train up my new, replacement. And we talked from like 5:30 p.m. to like 9 p.m. that night. And he said, can you just give me one more day before you make this decision final? Like let me think about it, come back with something for you. I'm like, sure. He came back the next day and he had a little sticky pad and he just wrote on it a little number. And he said, if you stay, I'm going to increase your salary by X amount, which is a substantial increase. And I'm going to give you, this is your new commission rate. And as long as our numbers don't suffer, you can go do whatever you want with your business. I mean, it was like, I looked at him and I was dumbfounded. I said, why would you do that? He told me, he said, I'll tell you one day. That's all he said. One day I'll tell you. I said, done. You got a deal. And I stayed with him for years while I grew the goal guide. So I wish I could tell you, I burned my ships and I did this.
Right.
I didn't do any of that. But what I did do is gave it everything I had to help him. I became valuable enough to where somebody looked at me and said, I don't want to lose this guy. I'm going to help support his dream. And
Yeah.
without Vince, I couldn't have done it. Like,
Yeah.
there were months I didn't sell anything in the Goal Guide. It's like
Yeah, sure.
maybe
Well,
because I didn't focus on it 100%. You could say that. Maybe because I had one foot in, one foot out. But I grew enough to where by the time I left, I'm good.
yeah, sure. Well, I think for those of you who are listening, I think this is a great example of how to help your team and your people grow and how to keep them around so that you can continue to grow your own business, but then also help them grow into their passions as well. I mean, I know one of the things that you say is that the most sustainable way to grow your company is to grow your people, and I mean we share that belief 100%. And I think that in today's environment, with the quote unquote great resignation, I mean, I think that leaders have forgotten what it means to help their people grow in some respects, because I think that if, every company had a Vince, then there wouldn't be a lot of people leaving the companies that they're at, right?
Yeah, I would totally agree, because as crazy as his philosophies are, he's got those same people that were there 16 years when I got there. They're still there.
Yeah.
And the only reason I left is I moved to Florida, and I was still working for him from Florida. Like, we're a
Wow. Yeah.
local DC company. Like, and
Yeah.
I was still here for like over a year until the supply chain got so bad that the team had like over a couple $1 million in signed agreements that we couldn't deliver, and we don't get paid until we deliver. So Vince, I was probably one of the higher paid guys, and he called me up and he's like, "Hey, we got to let you go." And you could tell, like, he's like almost crying.
Yeah. Pained. Yeah.
And I wrote him probably the nicest email I think anybody has ever written to anybody after they've been fired from a job, that was full of just love and gratitude and how much he meant to
Yeah.
me, and how much, like, I wouldn't be who I am without him, and how much he supported me and helped me. But let me rewind like 3 years before before our split. I found out I had a health scare, and they found like a birth defect in my heart, and I had to have open heart surgery. And the doctor's really scared. I'm a healthy guy. I probably ran 5 miles the day before I found out I had this. I went running.
Geez. Yeah.
So I was a healthy dude, but when you're born in former Soviet Union, they don't check you the way they check you here. So it was one of those things. And there was actually 3 defects in my heart. And now the doctors are like, we got to get this fixed now, because your heart's way enlarged. It's overworked. And we don't, this was when I found out, it was like March timeframe. And I told the doctor, I was like, all right, cool. So I've lived with this for, 37 years now. Why don't we wait till summertime's over? I got all these plans for summer, and we'll do it in September. He's like, I'm going on vacation for 1 week. When I come back, we're doing it. You don't have a summer.
You don't have a summer.
Yeah. So I'm like, so that kind of put things in perspective, and I was scared.
Yeah,
I didn't know if I was going to come out of it. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I remember I was sitting down with Vince, another one of those late night conversations. And I asked him, I said, I got to know, man, in case I don't make it out of this thing, why did you do it?
Do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you freaking make me that offer? Nobody else would ever do something like that. And he said, it's the old Zig Ziglar quote: when you help enough other people achieve what they want, you'll achieve everything that you want.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
He's like, I saw how bad you wanted it, and I wanted to help.
That's great.
And I'm like, I'll never forget that. I will never, ever forget that. Vince calls, he's got my full attention. Like, we still have a good, we'll text each other. We have a pretty good relationship. I'm so grateful for him. I'm so grateful for DCA. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
It was amazing.
That's awesome. I mean, truly everybody needs to have a Vince in their life. In a lot of ways, our stories are similar, because when I left the company that I was with, to start my company, my Vince was his name was Jim. And Jim was, an amazing leader, and he allowed me to do the transition. He, and very similar, he basically gave me 6 months. He said, "Hey, let's have Bravo Wellness be your first client." And I said, "Cool, that's great." And it gave me kind of the ramp that I needed to be able to start the business and still be able to help them as well. So yeah, that's great. So I know that you're also an author, Eric, and you've got your B2B sales book in the background. I love it. What led you to write a book and actually become an author?
It was one of those ideas that would constantly pop into my mind for years. You should write a book. You should write a book. Because I really did develop a pretty good sales strategy that worked. It worked. So there was little things that I saw missing in the sales process. Like reps are given proposals after the first meeting. That's nonsense. No one's validating the proposal after they submit it. Like you're not even asking the client how they feel about your idea that you want to propose. You just kind of, and then the clients disappear and you're sitting there scratching your head. People would show up to a meeting. I can't tell you how many sales reps would come back to me after a first meeting. We would sit down for a one-on-one and I'd say, "Hey, how'd it go with that client?" Awesome.
Of course.
They loved me. Yeah. They loved me. We talked for like 2 hours. They freaking loved me. 2 weeks later, what happened with that client? I don't know. They won't call me back. He's a jerk. He's an asshole.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Right? It's like, well, you're missing something. It's not, you're missing something. This is happening way too often. Them loving you is not, but I don't think they're loving you.
Yeah, right.
Figure this out.
Yeah.
And then I would see people show up to work and it's like, they got their mochaccino, frappuccino, whatever the hell it is. They're walking really slowly. They sit down. The first 35 minutes is all about last night and how they went out and how tired they are and how one guy hooked up with some. And I'm like, this is not, there's a better way.
There's a better way. Yeah, sure.
And so I took everything I learned at Xerox, everything I learned at the first company, everything I learned with Vince. And throughout these years, I hired a coach. I set up a morning routine. So the first 3 chapters is literally about my morning routine, how to set yourself up mentally for sales.
Love that.
The next section is all about that buyer's journey. So anything from cold calling, prospecting, sending out email, it's got some scripts in it, to what type of questions do you need to ask when you first meet with someone? Now you got the meeting. Now what? Then what next? How do you get them from point A to point B to point C to a demo to a validation to a close? Like people think, you see these mugs, and it came from an old stupid movie like Glengarry Glen Ross that every salesperson needs to know. Coffee is for closers.
Yeah.
We're so focused on closing somebody, we forget that they'll close themselves if you open it right. Open that relationship, nurture the relationship, they're going to close. Now, if you're a transactional sales, then it's different. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about technology. I'm talking about payroll. I'm talking about where you're actually offering a service. You need to nurture it. You need to really convey that your solution is going to help them fix a problem. And what I realized is most reps don't truly understand the problem. They think they understand the problem, but by the time they propose, it's evident that what the client perceives to be the problem, what the rep perceives to be the problem are two different things. So I'll give you an example. I just got referred to a company out of Utah to go and do the guy needed a sales coach. He's like, "Look, we got a team. Our sales are going up, down, up, down. They're not consistent. I need something." So I said, we had a great conversation over Zoom, and I wanted to reiterate. All right, so what do you think your biggest challenge is? Well, we're not consistent. Why? Because they're this. How come? I've really dug deep, got all that stuff in my notes. And he said, "Okay, so you'll give me a proposal, yeah?" I'm like, "Sure." And here's what I did. I did what's called a validation. I had the proposal, but I had the pricing on a separate sheet.
Yeah.
And this is what I recommend everybody do before you ever present pricing to anybody, is you do a validation meeting. And all that is you sit down with the with your client and you say, hey, based on our conversation, here's what I think you said that is your biggest challenge. Is that correct? They say yes. Based on our conversation, I think here's what I think is going to be the best solution for you, and here's why. See, he wanted like a 2-hour Zoom training, and I don't think that's the right place. So I said, no, I'm going to fly out to Utah. We're going to spend dinner together. We're going to spend a full day together. I'm going to sit on appointments, listening on calls, see your culture, understand your people, meet with them one-on-one. And then we're going to start the 90-day weekly program over Zoom.
Right.
And he's like, oh my God, that sounds really, really good. It's exactly what I want. And when he said that, I said, great, here's your investment.
Yeah.
If he wouldn't have said that, if he said, no, that's not what I'm looking for, I'm not showing him price. It doesn't make sense. Right. That's not what he wants. Yeah. So people don't validate. And oftentimes they email proposals. I never email a proposal. Never.
Yeah.
It's just silly. So all that stuff is in the book. And then the final section is all about, now you've sold them. How do you become a magnet for new business? And you want to do that through referrals. Like your first few years in sales, you should be out there hustling and cold calling.
Yeah. But
But if you're still doing that in year 4, 5, 6, you haven't built a relationship or a referral network. You're messing up somewhere.
Right. Right. Well, to me, it sounds a lot like your sales process in a lot of ways is informed by your early days in the Marine Corps. I mean, there's consistency, there's discipline, there's validation. I mean, I can kind of see the similarities all the way through, because I think that there's a lot of people that think sales is just going in and being nice and, like you said, oh, he loved me. But it's really about a process and being disciplined and understanding the problem that you're solving. And it's a problem resolution is what you're doing. So I think that's pretty interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen that before in yourself.
I haven't. I never correlated the Marine Corps experience with my sales process.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it may be nothing, but it's just something that I see just based on this conversation. But
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, so I guess the last question I have for you then is, as you look at what you do with sales teams and salespeople, what's the one thing, if there is just one thing, that seems to be like the biggest growth challenge for those teams and individuals that you see?
I think it's they're self-focused about how much money I can make, what product can I push, what can I sell. And you can say, you can even see that in sales meetings.
Sure.
Right? Like the sales manager is not often asking the team, what problems are they solving?
Yeah.
How are you helping your clients? What are you doing? How are you standing out from your competition? What do your clients need? Where's the industry going? What challenges are they having? What are the new regulations out there that are going to affect their business? They're not asking that. They're like, what are you pushing today? What did you sell last week? How many appointments do you have? It's all self-focused. And it's weird because it makes sense, right? I mean, that's how we've always done it, but it makes sense to do that. You got to focus on how much you're going to sell. But if you just flip it a little bit and do role plays like, all right, I am my ideal client, whatever. I'm the CFO in the financial sector. Okay, what challenges am I having? Let's role play these.
Yeah, sure.
Because if you can craft that for your team, imagine calling up a CFO and saying, hey, John, I understand you're a CFO at ABC company. Listen, we specialize in helping chief financial officers. And what I've realized is that most of you are dealing with most of the chief financial officers that I help find that this has been a problem in the industry. And I lay out a specific problem in their industry.
Sure.
Is that the case for you, or have you found a way to really handle that?
Yeah.
No, Eric, that's definitely a case.
Yeah.
Listen, can we schedule 15 minutes? I think I might have a way to help you. I just want to share with you what we've done for others and how they got past it. Right now I'm focusing on that problem, but that's not a sales training that we do. The sales training we do is, here's our product. Here's how awesome it is. We have these awards. Here's our testimonials. It's so us focused and not client focused. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So it's really all about focusing on the problem and helping to resolve that and looking outside of ourselves. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
positioning yourself as an expert. Right now, I'm coaching a young man who started a recruiting company.
uh,
And so we're having these conversations. And I'm like, listen,
mhm,
what's the number one problem most companies are having right now?
mhm.
Finding good people.
Right,
That's it. That's the talk. Hey, listen, most
right.
companies are having a very hard time finding good people. Do you find yourself in that situation?
Yeah, piece of cake.
I
Yeah.
want to talk to you about your problem. I don't want to talk to you about my product
My
because
my
I know you
product.
don't
Yeah,
care,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah,
cares about your product or service. They care
yeah,
about what your product or service can do for their problem. That's it.
yeah. Right, right. Eric, this has been an amazing conversation, and I've loved to hear, your growth journey, and I love, especially for those of you who are listening, you got to be able to feel his passion and be able to feel his energy, and I think that when you're around somebody like that, you just are able to glean things from them and from their lives. And I know that I've gleaned a lot from your life just by hearing your story and your growth journey. If there's anything that you wanted to share that we didn't talk about, what would that be?
Well, first, I want to thank you, David. And I mean, you're one of the most incredible leaders that I have a chance to kind of watch and observe from the sideline. The stuff
Yeah.
you guys do with Turning Point, how you take people and get them to go through that terror barrier and the fears that they have and get them to kind of push through those things. It takes a special guy. You're a father of a Marine, right? You don't
That's
brag
right.
about
Yeah.
that too much. And
Yeah.
so thank you for what you do, because you're helping leaders who are going out into the world to create more leaders. And leadership is learned. It's not a
Yeah.
natural thing.
Right.
And so, I want to say kudos to you and thank you for all that you do. The one thing that recently, man, I got to tell you, my kid came to me, and you guys are going to get a kick out of this. Kid comes to me. Let me preface this. And John Maxwell has this thing where he teaches, I think in the book Today Matters. It's one of my favorite lessons. And it made
Yeah.
my life so much easier. And that lesson is, make a decision early and manage that decision daily. So we all do it. Well, most people do it, when you get married, right? You get married, you kind of make a decision that you're sticking with this one person. 50% of us do that, according to
Right.
the divorce polls. I do that with fitness, for example. Like, I enjoy working out. I made a decision that I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to hit the gym and be done with it before. And another decision I've made was that no matter where I am, if I see a kid selling anything, I want to sow into them that entrepreneurial spirit. Whatever the hell they're selling, I'm buying.
Yeah, I love it.
So I have two little boys. About 2 weeks ago, my kid comes in, my 9-year-old Mikey. He says, "Daddy, I got a business idea." I'm like, shoot. Now, Mikey is a firecracker. That kid is just a ball of energy. He's like the Tasmanian devil. There's another reference.
Back to Looney Tunes again.
Yeah. He's just spinning around. Like, that's all he does. Nonstop energy. And he's like, I got a business idea. And I either need you to give me the money for it or be my partner. Which one do you want to do? That's how he approaches me, right? I got two options. Either you're going to give me the money for it or you're going to be my business partner. So what's your idea before I commit to this?
Yeah.
Okay. We start a cotton candy selling business. I'm like, tell me about it. He's like, I just need you to buy me a cotton candy machine. And then we're going to sell it. And we're going to give some of that money to the homeless.
Oh my gosh.
And amazing. So I'm like, done deal, partner. We got a business. So
I love it.
I bought a cotton candy machine. We're in business.
That's great.
I didn't realize how sticky and messy making cotton candy is. And when you're packaging it in plastic bags, that it doesn't survive more than like a day.
Yeah, right.
Kind of deflates. But we made like $643 our first week.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And ended up with, 150 of that is going to charity. We still have $100 in profit that I'm making labels. I'm buying more containers. So now I'm like full grown, I got somebody that I cannot let down.
Yeah.
Because he's like 15 minutes after making cotton candy, he's eating cotton candy,
right?
and he's like on his phone trying to play video games. I'm like,
oh my gosh, oh,
this isn't my,
yeah.
I got the short end of the stick here, but
I love
it's
it.
it's been such a rewarding experience to be able to do that with my kid. And what I realized two things. One is when you unconditionally give your attention to somebody, they just start loving you because they don't get that anywhere else. Not doing what you want to do, doing what they want to do. And the shift in my son, like he woke up last night. I work out with a men's group called F3. Today I was leading the workout. Last night he's like, I want to go with you.
Oh wow.
We have to leave the house at 4:45 in the morning. My 9-year-old's like, wake me up at 4:30. I'm going with you. I said, why do you want to go with me? He said, because I know you're leading it and I want to be there to support you.
Gosh, that's amazing.
He was the first one today. We had 12 people out there. He was the first one for every exercise, doing squats, running, bunny hop, like killed it. I was so impressed with him.
Amazing.
Number 2, if you're stuck and you don't know your next steps, find somebody who you can support or volunteer. Because what I learned is I don't work as hard for my own business as I do for his business.
Yeah. Right.
It's so weird. I don't promote myself as hard as I promote him. Yeah. If you go to my Facebook page right now, you're just going to see a wall of cotton candy stuff.
I love it.
You're not going to see a wall of Eric stuff.
That's great.
And I'm on fire doing it because I'm seeing this little face and I just want to help him see some success and push him. Yeah. And it's such a lesson that no matter where you are in your life as a leader, if you're a leader who's stuck, you're not connecting with people, put your ego to the side and go compliment 3 of your people. Just unconditionally. Great. Hey, you know what, Jamie? I've been observing you. I've been listening to what you say. I think you're an amazing mother. Oh my God. You know how far that's going to go? Yeah. If a client said they'll call you and they haven't called you, put your ego aside and call them just to say, hey, I know, we were supposed to touch base. I just want to make sure you're okay. Is there anything I can do? Or even better, send them a referral. Who can you refer to your clients? Right? Yeah. You start serving and I'm telling you, your life is going to change completely. Oh, man. There's 2 things: compliment and refer people to your clients for business.
Love it.
And you're going to grow.
Gosh, that right there is gold. That is gold. So for those of you who are listening, if you're in sales, and let's face it, we're all in sales because we're selling something, whether we're selling to our own employer or we're selling, something, that's, serve. I love that. I love that.
It'll come back tenfold.
Right on, man. Right on. Eric, thanks so much for being here. This has been amazing. I could actually go on for quite a while because I love listening to your stories, man.
You're an amazing host, David. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me as a guest.
It's my pleasure, Eric.
Well, I absolutely love Eric and his story and his energy. His energy is so infectious. And he is an amazing leader. He's an amazing dad and husband. And gosh, what a story, coming to the US at age 10 and not knowing how to speak the language. Come on. that's getting thrown outside of your comfort zone. And that there's no safety net with that either. And honestly, I think that's one way to build resilience is to jump out of your comfort zone and not have a safety net. Sometimes you might fall and you might have to get back up. But it's definitely going to teach you resilience. So there were a couple of takeaways that I just wanted to highlight, and the one that first rises to the top, and it's about what I was just talking about, being resilient and having to find a way to provide. He talked about how his parents and he had to find a way to make money, earn a living, and really become resilient. And I think that is a benefit, if it, as it were, to being in a really tough spot, being a refugee, not knowing the language, having to really work hard at finding your way. So anyway, I really do appreciate that part of his story. I loved his story about going into the recruiting office and Johnny Bravo being there and his man crush with the Marine Corps recruiter. But he understood that was going to be a growth experience. And I know from firsthand experience with my son, who also was a Marine, that boot camp really instilled discipline. It helped him to be calm under stress, and it really helped teach him a lot of things. And so when he got into sales, I think that's something that if you've been under that kind of pressure, that kind of stress, then going into sales, you're not going to get much tougher stress than being in the Marine Corps. So sales is nothing after that, right? The other thing, speaking of sales, getting into sales, one of the things that I think was really important is that he got into sales because somebody else saw something in him that maybe he didn't. And I think so often there are people that are around us that see things in us that we can't see in ourselves. And when we have somebody like that and we can really tune into them, they can help guide us and they can give us the guidance that we need to be able to move in a direction that will be aligned with the things that are our strength zones. And so I thought that was a really valuable lesson as well. There was another point, too, that Eric made that I think is really important, especially in this environment. And it was really around the idea of becoming valuable enough and so valuable that your team, your company, your leaders don't want you to ever leave. Make sure that you are doing everything you can, even beyond your requirements, to help other people get what they want. And when you do that, you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get what you want, and you'll be able to achieve everything that you want to achieve as well. The other thing I think that Eric mentioned, and I think this is really true, and it really resonates with me and the leaders that I work with, and that is that the leaders who invest in their team know the value of investing in their people. They see people's value, they build their value, and they believe in them. And sometimes we have to believe in our people before they believe in themselves. So I think that's such a great takeaway as a leader, to not only just invest in your team, invest, yes, money, invest time, but see their value and believe in them first so that they can then believe in themselves. Eric also has a really strong morning routine. I know for a fact that he gets up at like 4 o'clock or maybe even 3:30 in the morning, and he's got a really solid morning routine. And I think that's another component of a strong leader, is to have a morning routine. Now, I'm not saying that you have to get up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, but I will say that getting up in the morning does give you quiet time to be able to do the things for yourself so that you can be well and that you can lead well. And honestly, I think that having a morning routine really sets your day up for success. And the other thing I'll say too is that even though I know we talked a little bit about sales and Eric's focus on sales, whether you're in sales, a sales role or not, you're always in sales. I mean, you're always selling an idea, selling your position. And so I really thought that and believe that Eric has a great process to selling your ideas, and that consistency and having some validation, being really disciplined, and really at the end of the day, solving a problem, because that's really what sales is. And so I think too many people have this icky feeling about sales, and it really isn't icky. I think that it's such a great service when we can solve a problem. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I really loved talking with Eric. And let me just say that I want to encourage you to go on this leadership and growth journey, not by yourself, but with a community. Because a community, as I know, and I'm sure as you know, if you've been around this podcast for any length of time, going on that journey with others is so much more impactful, and it helps to give you some motivation when your motivation wanes. One of the best ways for you to do that really is to join us at the Inner Circle Summit. We're going to have a room full of leaders. You can network with them. You can ask some questions. You can connect with them. They'll be all of them are on a journey, and we're all on a journey. Now, we are limiting the number of participants, so hopefully we do have some seats available when this episode airs. We record these episodes far enough in advance, so make sure that you go to our registration page, davidmcglennon.com/Inner Circle Summit 2022, and make sure you get registered today before we do sell out. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on In the Growth Space. I really appreciate you tuning in. Love it if you would go out and rate us, review, make sure you subscribe. And until next time, be intentional with your growth journey and be well.